93% of men who come to my practice after 40 believe the same thing. They believe the version of themselves that could go all day, that could train hard, sleep 5 hours, show up completely, and do it again tomorrow is gone, permanently, biologically non-negotiable. They are wrong, and I can prove it. What if I told you that the fatigue you wake up with every morning, that bone-deep heaviness that coffee doesn't touch, is not a symptom of getting older? What if it is a symptom of a system that has been quietly and systematically starved, and that the same biology that got you here can be recalibrated without drugs, without 6 hours in a gym, and without waiting another decade to find out what you have left? I want you to think back. Not 5 years ago, not 10. I want you to go back to a specific Saturday afternoon. Maybe your kid was 6, maybe 7, and they grabbed your hand and said, "Dad, chase me." And you just ran. No calculation, no inventory of your body, no negotiation with your lower back. You just ran. Now fast forward to this Saturday. Same kid, different body, different story. The afternoon crash that arrives at 2 p.m. uninvited, the mornings that feel like a negotiation between you and the mattress, the quiet sense that your body used to be your ally, and somewhere between then and now, it switched sides. Here is the truth most men are never told. That is not aging. That is a depleted system, and a depleted system can be restored. Here at Primal Unleashed, we live by what we call the silverback standard. The belief that modern life doesn't just make us tired, it makes us soft at a cellular level. And that primal movement, primal fueling, and primal recovery can make a man over 40 not just functional, but genuinely unbreakable. We don't just lift weights, we reclaim our nature. I'm Dr. Aris Thorne. I've spent 14 years working with men over 40, executives, former athletes, combat veterans, and yes, regular dads who were convinced their best years were done. In a few minutes, I'm going to share the one hormonal mechanism most men never hear about, the one upstream of testosterone and cortisol both. And once you understand it, everything else in this episode will make sense in a way it never has before. But first, you need to understand why your body got here, because without that, nothing I give you will stick. Every segment from here builds on the last. Miss one, you get pieces. Stay through all of it, you get the complete architecture, including the 30-day roadmap you can start tonight. Let's go. The silent drain on modern fatherhood. Here's a number that should make you stop. A 60-year-old man in 1987 had measurably higher testosterone than a 60-year-old man in 2004. That study, published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology, tracked 3 generations, and by 2026, the curve has not leveled off. It has continued to drop. We are not just aging faster, we are biologically aging in a different environment than any generation of men before us, and our bodies are paying the price. Think about what the modern male environment actually looks like in 2026. Endocrine-disrupting chemicals, xenoestrogens in plastics, food packaging, and municipal water systems are now documented to bind to androgen receptors and block testosterone signaling at the cellular level. This is not a fringe theory. This is environmental health perspectives. This is the NIH database. This is settled science that somehow never makes it to the men it affects most. Chronic low-grade stress, the kind that lives in your chest when you think about the mortgage, the school fees, the quarterly review, and the fact that 3 people in your house need something from you right now, keeps cortisol chronically elevated. And elevated cortisol does one thing with extraordinary efficiency. It cannibalizes testosterone, not gradually, directly. And then there's the physical architecture of modern fatherhood. The car seat, the desk chair, the couch, the absence of ground-level movement, heavy lifting, and genuine physical challenge from daily life. Your grandfather did not need a gym membership. His life was the workout. I want to slow down here because this is the part I think matters most.
The exhaustion most fathers carry is not just physical, it is identity level. There's a version of you that used to feel capable, not just physically, capable, like you could handle whatever came at you, like your body was a resource you could draw on, not a liability you had to manage. And when that feeling slowly disappears, something else takes its place, something quieter, a kind of low-grade resignation that most men don't talk about, not at dinner, not to their partner, not even to themselves at 2 a.m. when the house is finally quiet and the weight of it is most visible. That feeling has a name, and it is not weakness, it is physiology. The dad bod has been culturally repackaged as a badge of honor, a sign you're a devoted father who gave everything to his family. I understand that story. I respect the sacrifice underneath it. But as a clinician, I need to tell you something clearly. That softness is a red flag, not a rite of passage. When testosterone drops significantly below optimal range, the downstream consequences are cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, metabolic syndrome, depression, and cognitive decline. The very thing that makes you present for your family, your clarity, your patience, your drive, is biochemically dependent on your hormonal health. Now, I promised you I would tell you about the hormonal mechanism most men never hear about, the one upstream of testosterone and cortisol both. It is called the HPG axis, the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal cascade. This is the command chain. The hypothalamus signals the pituitary signals the gonads produce testosterone. Most interventions target the end of that chain, the output. What we're addressing today targets the source, the upstream signaling, which is why what I'm about to give you works when standard advice has failed you before. That's the architecture, and here's how we rebuild it. In the next section, the Testosterone Rescue Blueprint, I'm going to give you 3 clinical protocols that directly restore HPG signaling. The first one will almost certainly surprise you. Protocol 1, the Micronutrient Foundation Stack. Most men who come to me with a testosterone problem actually have a conversion problem. Their body is producing testosterone, but it's being bound by sex hormone binding globulin, a protein that locks testosterone away from the cells that need it. Free testosterone, the kind that crosses into your muscle, brain, and drive systems, is suppressed not because production failed, because the conversion pathway is starved. 3 compounds restore this pathway directly. Zinc, directly involved in testosterone synthesis at the enzymatic level. Chronic stress and sweat deplete zinc faster than dietary intake can replenish it in most men over 40. Target 25 to 40 milligrams daily from food-first sources, oysters, grass-fed red meat, pumpkin seeds.
Supplement only if dietary intake is genuinely insufficient. Zinc toxicity is real. Magnesium glycinate, the most underused performance compound in men's health. Magnesium competes with sex hormone binding globulin for binding sites. When magnesium is sufficient, SHBG releases more testosterone into circulation. 300 to 400 milligrams before sleep. The glycinate form for superior absorption and a secondary sleep quality benefit. Vitamin D3 paired with K2. Vitamin D functions less like a vitamin and more like a steroid hormone precursor in the male endocrine system. The correlation between vitamin D deficiency and testosterone suppression is among the most replicated data points in endocrinology. 4,000 to 6,000 IUs of D3 daily, always paired with 100 to 200 micrograms of K2. Stop. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. How many of you are watching this right now thinking, I've heard supplement advice before and nothing changed? Keep that thought, because what I'm about to give you is the piece most supplement advice skips entirely. The reason the stack I just described works when zinc and D3 alone never did anything for you. Protocol 2, cold exposure as hormonal signaling.
This is not about being tough. This is about biochemistry. Cold immersion triggers a sympathetic nervous system response that floods the body with norepinephrine up to 300% above baseline. But more critically, repeated cold exposure has been shown in clinical literature to increase luteinizing hormone, the upstream pituitary signal that tells your testes to produce testosterone. You are not just doing something hard, you are sending a survival signal through your endocrine system. This organism is alert, capable, and under no metabolic threat. Maintain full hormonal output. Start with 60 to 90 seconds of full cold at the end of your shower. Build over 4 weeks to 2 to 3 minutes. Progress to immersion at 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 to 5 minutes, 3 to 4 times weekly when accessible. Protocol 3. Primal compound movement at high intensity. Not walking, not the elliptical, not staying active. Heavy, compound, multi-joint movements executed at 80% or above of your maximum effort. Deadlifts, trap bar carries, kettlebell swings, sled pushes, loaded carries. Movements your body recognizes from 200,000 years of evolutionary programming. These movements, at true intensity, produce a measurable testosterone and growth hormone response within 15 to 30 minutes post-effort. Steady-state cardio does not. Yoga does not. Light resistance training does not. The intensity is the mechanism. 2 sessions per week of 25 to 35 minutes is sufficient to shift your hormonal baseline over 8 to 12 weeks. 3 sessions accelerates this to 6 weeks. The men who keep asking when to start see no shift at all. The hormonal foundation is now in place. But here is what most men discover at this point. You can restore the hormonal output and still feel like garbage, because without the right fuel, your cells cannot convert that restored testosterone into the energy, recovery, and drive you are looking for. What I was sharing in the next section is the piece that makes everything you just heard actually show up in your body. Metabolic engines and precision fueling. Let's talk about food, and let's be honest about it in a way the wellness industry rarely is. Your body is not broken, it is misfueled. The nutrition architecture I call the anti-inflammatory DAD protocol is not a diet. It is a cellular operating system designed for one specific purpose: to give your mitochondria, the energy factories inside every cell, exactly what they need to run at full capacity after 40. Remember I said the foundation stack works when you give it the right cellular environment. This is that environment. Principle 1. Mitochondrial priority. After 40, mitochondrial density and efficiency naturally begin to decline, but a landmark study in Cell Metabolism, 2024, confirmed that dietary choices are the single most influential variable in mitochondrial function, more than age, more than genetics. Foods that directly feed mitochondrial health. Wild fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel for omega-3s and CoQ10 precursors. Dark leafy greens for nitrate conversion to nitric oxide, which dilates blood vessels and amplifies oxygen delivery to working muscle. Blueberries and pomegranates for polyphenols that activate the SIRT1 longevity pathway. Extra virgin olive oil for oleocanthal, a natural COX-2 inhibitor with the same target as ibuprofen without the gut damage. Principle 2. Carbohydrate timing. Men over 40 become progressively more sensitive to blood sugar spikes. The same plate of pasta that registered nothing at 32 will trigger insulin response at 44 that promotes fat storage, cortisol elevation, and the exact 2 p.m. crash you recognize. The solution is not to remove carbohydrates, it is to time them. Consume the majority of your carbohydrates within 2 hours of your training sessions, the window when muscle cells are most insulin sensitive and glucose is driven into lean tissue instead of fat stores. Complex carbohydrates only. sweet potato, oats, quinoa. Avoid refined carbohydrates in the evening entirely. This single shift, applied consistently, produces measurable improvement in insulin sensitivity within 30 days. Principle 3. Gut biome diversity. In 2025, researchers at the Karolinska Institute confirmed a direct bidirectional communication pathway between gut bacteria populations and the HPG axis, the hormonal command chain we discussed earlier. In plain language, an unhealthy gut actively suppresses the upstream signaling that drives testosterone production. Restore gut diversity through daily fermented foods, kimchi, raw kefir, and sauerkraut, and 30 different plant food inputs weekly. Herbs, spices, and seeds count. Diversity of plant input is the single strongest predictor of a robust microbiome in 2026 research. If this is landing for you, drop a comment below with the word silverback. It tells me this is useful, and it helps this information reach more dads who need it. The fuel is in place, the hormones are rebuilding, but there's one final biological lever, the most powerful recovery mechanism your body has, that most fathers are actively destroying every single night. And until this is fixed, none of it holds. The deep sleep and recovery revolution. Here's the most important performance insight I will share with you today. You can execute every protocol in this episode perfectly. The micronutrients, the cold exposure, the compound training, the precision nutrition, and still wake up tomorrow feeling exactly as depleted as you do right now, because none of it works without this. During stage 3 deep sleep, slow wave sleep, your pituitary gland releases the majority of your daily growth hormone output. Not during your workout, not from your supplements, during deep sleep. This is the primary biological channel through which your body repairs muscle, consolidates hormonal gains, and restores the neurological systems that govern focus, motivation, and emotional regulation.
Wearable data from WHO and Aura, 2025 aggregate datasets, shows that 74% of fathers between 38 and 52 are getting fewer than 2 complete slow-wave cycles per night. 6 hours on the clock is not 6 hours of recovery. Fragmented sleep, disrupted by cortisol spikes and irregular sleep timing, produces a growth hormone debt that compounds silently every single night. You have been recovering at 40% capacity, and you have been blaming yourself for not being able to keep up. That ends today. Here's the dark room protocol. Step 1. Full darkness, blackout curtains, or a sleep mask. Even standby LEDs suppress melatonin secretion. Full darkness signals to the pineal gland that recovery mode is safe to initiate. Step 2. Temperature drop, 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. The body must lower its core temperature to enter and sustain deep sleep. If HVAC control is not available, cooling sheets, a bed fan, or a cold shower 90 minutes before sleep. Step 3. No screens 60 minutes out. Blue light suppresses melatonin by up to 50% for up to 3 hours post-exposure. Replace the phone with 10 minutes of deliberate breathing, 4 counts in, 6 counts out. This activates the parasympathetic nervous system and lowers cortisol before the sleep window begins. Step 4. Anchor your circadian clock. Same sleep time and wake time, including weekends. Social jet lag, sleeping in Saturday to recover, takes 3 to 4 days of downstream disruption to resolve. Your circadian anchor is a hormonal regulator. Treat it as one. Notice what we have built. Micronutrients restoring the raw materials, cold exposure sending the upstream signal, compound training triggering the acute hormonal response, precision nutrition fueling the cellular machinery, and now deep sleep activating the synthesis of everything else.
This is not a supplement stack. This is a complete biological system operating in sequence, each part amplifying the others. The men who follow this don't just feel better, they feel different, in a way they haven't felt since their early 30s and honestly didn't think was coming back. But there is one final piece, the one that determines whether all of this becomes a month-long experiment or the rest of your life. The primal mindset and legacy impact. I want to tell you about a man I'll call Marcus. Marcus came to me at 47, 2 kids, an executive title, a mortgage, and a kind of exhaustion that had long since moved past physical and settled into something he couldn't name. He described feeling invisible, not to the world, but to himself. Like the man he remembered being had gone somewhere, and the person who showed up for school pickups and quarterly reviews was someone else wearing his face. He told me this on our first session, quietly, like it was something he had never said out loud before. 8 months later, he sent me a video. He was executing a 185-pound sandbag carry across a field, slow, controlled, focused, and running alongside him, trying to match his stride, his 12-year-old son. The caption read, "He asked me to teach him everything." That is what this is actually about. Not the protocol, not the science, not the numbers on a blood panel. It's about becoming the kind of man your children look at and decide that is who I want to be. That is the silverback standard, not a physique, not a performance metric, the legacy of a father who decided that his best version was still ahead and chose to make his children witnesses to what that looks like. Here's what the research on behavioral change is unambiguous about. Identity precedes behavior. Every man who has ever abandoned a training program or quit a nutrition protocol did not fail because the program was wrong. He failed because his identity, the unconscious story he tells himself about who he is, was not yet that of a man who does those things. You cannot consistently act outside of your self-image, not long-term. The shift I ask every father to make is this. Stop saying, "I'm trying to get healthier." Start saying, "I am a high-performance father, and this is what I do." That reframe is not motivational language, it's neurological. Identity-based commitments activate entirely different neural pathways than outcome-based goals. They are more resistant to disruption under pressure, more consistent across weeks and months, and in study after study, they are the single strongest predictor of long-term adherence. You are not trying to get back to who you were. The version of you that just ran without thinking, that man was impressive. But the man you are becoming, the one who chooses this, who builds this deliberately, who shows his kids what discipline and vitality look like across the long game, that man is something else entirely. And the silverback doesn't wait for the right conditions, he creates them. The 30-day Unstoppable Dad Challenge. Everything you have heard in this episode is now a single executable system. Here's how you install it without sacrificing a single family dinner, career obligation, or weekend with your kids. I call it the 30-day Unstoppable Dad Challenge. Week 1, Foundation. Night 1, implement the dark room protocol. No negotiation. Start the foundation stack, zinc, magnesium glycinate, D3 plus K2. Begin cold exposure at the close of your shower, 60 to 90 seconds. That's your entire week 1 protocol, 3 inputs, consecutive nights, no exceptions. Week 2, Fuel. Shift your carbohydrate timing, post-workout window only. Add 1 fermented food source daily, kimchi, kefir, raw sauerkraut. Replace 1 ultra-processed meal per day with an anti-inflammatory dad protocol meal. Begin sleep tracking with any wearable. The data alone will change your behavior. Week 3, Movement. 2 compound training sessions, 25 to 35 minutes each. Trap bar deadlifts, goblet squats, kettlebell carries. Intensity is the mechanism. 30 minutes of focused intensity produces results that 90 minutes of unfocused never will. Week 4, identity. Write your identity statement. 1 sentence. I am a high-performance father, and this is what I do. Share it with one person in your life, your partner, a close friend, your kid. Verbalize who you are becoming. The act of declaration accelerates everything. At the end of 30 days, the consistent outcomes across the men who complete this are measurable improvement in sleep quality, visible reduction in central fat alongside increased lean tissue, and, the one that gets reported most consistently, the one that matters most, a qualitative shift in how they feel in their own skin. Present, tapeable, alive in a way that feels familiar, like something they had almost forgotten was available to them. That is not marketing. That is the system working the way it was designed to work when you stop fighting your biology and start feeding it. I want you to take you back to that Saturday afternoon one last time. Your kid, your hand, Dad, chase me. What if the next time that happens, you don't inventory your body first? What if there's no negotiation, no calculation, no glance toward the couch? What if you just move the way you were built to move, and the only thing your kid registers is a father who is there, fully, without reservation, without hesitation?
That is not nostalgia. That is a biological reality available to every man listening to this right now. The energy you were looking for is not gone. It has been waiting on the other side of a decision you haven't made yet. Modern life made you soft. That was not your choice. But what you do starting tonight, that is entirely yours. If something in this episode landed for you, a moment where you thought, that is exactly what I've been feeling, share it with another dad who needs to hear it. That one share might be the thing that changes his trajectory. Drop a comment below telling me which of the 4 weeks you were starting with. I read every single one. And if you want the complete written 30-day Unstoppable Dad Blueprint, the exact training progressions, the 4 micronutrient schedule, and the sleep tracking framework, it is linked in the description. Free. No pitch, just the work. And if you want to know what happens after the 30 days, what the men who complete this challenge move to next, and why the second protocol is actually the more powerful one, that is exactly what we cover in the next episode. Subscribe so you don't miss it. I'm Dr. Aris Thorne. This is Primal Unleashed. We don't just lift weight, we reclaim our nature.